What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and it's time for my updated college football playoff predictions as we head into Week 9, which I guess technically Week 9's already started. But let's just jump right in, and again, I'm going to give you my updated predictions on how I think things are going to go the rest of the season. And I still have not a lot of changes, honestly, this week. There are some. Ohio State, I still think, wins out. I think they win the Big Ten championship. The only game I could see them possibly losing would be that game to Michigan, just because it's Michigan and they have owned them in the last few years. But even if they lose that game, now it would be interesting if they lose that game. You know, where is Michigan at? Then you have potentially a tiebreaker with Oregon and Ohio State, and I haven't looked into who would win that. So, yeah, that would be really interesting to see how that would play out if Ohio State does lose. And again, Oregon and Indiana win out, or even if Indiana loses a game, you had a three-way tie, or maybe Michigan wins out. And there are a lot of different scenarios that could play out, and we could get chaos in the Big Ten. Don't really think that's going to happen, but it could. And the way the season has gone, really, that's the only conference that has not had. Well, I guess they have. I mean, Penn State. So we've had surprises in the Big Ten as well. So every conference has had surprises, of course. And we got Alabama number 2. This team just looks like, honestly, the best team in the SEC right now. I'm really going back and forth. I had Georgia beating Alabama in the SEC championship last week. I'm going to flip that around to Alabama this week. I don't know. Georgia is so inconsistent, and Alabama seems to really have found some things. So I'm going to go with Alabama this week. We might flip it back to Georgia next week. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, Alabama, how do they look against South Carolina? That's going to be a really interesting matchup there. I think it's going to be potentially a good game, or I know a lot of people think it's going to be a blowout. We'll see. Number 3, Indiana. I think Indiana finishes 12-0, but they lose the Big Ten championship. Alabama's SEC championship win is enough to get them one spot over Indiana, but Indiana's still getting a first-round bye. And then Georgia at number 4. Again, I think they win out, but maybe they lose that game to Alabama. Maybe we flip those around. That's one that I'm really struggling with. Who would win that rematch? But in Georgia, I mean, Alabama's just owned Georgia, so maybe it happens. Maybe they beat them again. I know I talk about this on the channel sometimes. If you look back at history and conference championship rematches, the team that won the first time wins more than the team that lost the first time. And that's just, again, you can look at the numbers. So anyways, we're going to go with Alabama at 2, Georgia at 4. Could easily flip those around. Then at 5 is Oregon. I think that's probably where we put the Ducks. I think, they didn't finish strong against Indiana, but other than that, man, this team has looked good. I know they haven't played the toughest schedule, but they have really looked good. Number 6, I've got Miami. I think the Louisville game was a wake-up call. I think they'll bounce back. They'll finish strong. As long as Carson Beck stops throwing interceptions, they should win the rest of their games, win the ACC championship. I predicted, and I've said for a while now, I thought they would lose a game. That's really not the game I thought they would lose, but it was definitely a possibility. And so now that they've lost that game, again, I think they can win out. SMU is going to be a tricky one on the road. That's one that could shake things up even more in the ACC. I'm going Texas Tech at number 7. I also said they would lose a game. Now they've lost a game. I think they'll win out, though. I think this is the best team in the Big 12. At number 8, Texas A&M, 10-2, but, I'm starting to look at them more like potentially an 11-1 team. If they can get past LSU on the road this weekend, maybe Texas A&M factors into that SEC championship. And what do we do with a 3-way tie with Texas A&M? Actually, Alabama wins out. Their loss was a non-conference loss. So who wins the tiebreaker between Texas A&M and Georgia for an opportunity to play Alabama in the SEC championship? That would be very interesting there. Number 9, we're going to go Tennessee. I think this team can win out. I think they can get to 10-2. They should be favored in the rest of their games. Probably. They do have Florida on the road. They have Vandy. That Tennessee-Vandy game could be for a spot in the college football playoff. And even this weekend, coming up with Texas A&M. No, excuse me. Sorry, getting my games mixed up here. The game this weekend between Ole Miss and Oklahoma, I think that game could have really big implications, especially if Ole Miss wins. If Ole Miss wins that game, I think they're in. I think they lose, though, and then I think they trip up. I don't trust Lane Kiffin down the stretch. We've seen it now a couple of times where he's lost some games when they've had opportunities to really do something big. I look at that Egg Bowl. I picked it preseason. I thought that they would lose that game. I'm going to stick with that for now. So I do not have Ole Miss in. I have Tennessee in. If Tennessee loses another game, Then perhaps that Ole Miss Oklahoma winner gets in. I mean, there are a lot of different scenarios in the SEC. But this is what I'm going with right now. I'm going Notre Dame 10. I think they win out. Should win the rest of their games. 11, I'm going Georgia Tech. And that last spot might come down to an 11-1, and then they lose. Let's say they lose the ACC championship. That would actually put them at an 11-2. So an 11-2 Georgia Tech versus a 9-3 Oklahoma. That would be a really good debate. I don't know. I don't know who would get in. And it wouldn't just be Oklahoma. It'd potentially Ole Miss at 9-3, maybe Vanderbilt at 9-3. You know, several SEC teams could be fighting for that last spot at 9-3. And it could, you know, I think the committee probably just goes the easy route and puts Georgia Tech in that scenario. And then at number 12, I'm going South Florida, the team I've had for a while now. I'm sticking with this team. I think they're the best team at the Group of 5 level. And perhaps if they went out and they look really good, they could even be ahead of a Georgia Tech, and we might see South Florida at 11, Georgia Tech at 12. That would be interesting. I don't know that they would go higher than a 10-2 SEC team, though, or a Notre Dame. All right, so let's, again, the main focus of this video is what you're looking at right now, the playoff field. We're going to quickly go through the games, just hypothetically, not putting a lot of thought into it. Texas A&M, they're at home. I think they're a better team. I think they beat Tennessee. I got Oregon over South Florida, just too much talent. And then we got Texas Tech, Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame gets it done. I think this Notre Dame team, this is the best passing offense they've had in a while, and they can still run the football. And the defense, I think it will come along by the time we get to the playoff. I know it has not looked as good as what we're used to seeing, but Marcus Freeman's a great coach. Then you get Miami versus Georgia Tech. How about this? This could be a rematch of the ACC championship. So that would be really interesting. But I think Miami wins it again, going Hurricanes. Then we got Ohio State, Texas A&M. This is a tough one. I think A&M could match up pretty well with Ohio State, but I'm going to go Buckeyes. They've looked like the best team so far, in my opinion. Oregon, I think, beats an inconsistent Georgia team in the Orange Bowl. I think the time off could hurt Georgia here, and Oregon gets the win. Then we got Alabama versus Notre Dame. I'm going to go Notre Dame. I really think this Notre Dame team could do something special. I know they lost a couple of games early that were close, but I think they're going to finish strong, and they're going to really have some momentum going into the playoff. So going Notre Dame there. Then you've got Miami versus Indiana. Should be a good one. I'm going to trust Kurt Cignetti over Mario Cristobal. I'm going Indiana. So I've got 3 Big Ten teams in the Final Four. That maybe that. I mean, if these are the best 3 teams in the country, I mean, it is what it is. And I've said for a while, the top of the Big Ten is better than the SEC, even though the SEC is deeper. That's why I think we could see 2 or 3 Big Ten teams in the Final Four. I'm going to go Ohio State over Oregon. Again, this has been the most complete team in my opinion. And then Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame keeps it rolling. They beat Indiana for a second straight year in the playoff. And then we get Ohio State and Notre Dame in the national championship. I'm going to stick with the Buckeyes. So my pick last week, it's not going to change here. Ohio State wins the national championship. Again, this is looking like the best team to me so far. But if they do this, that would mean they go and they run the table. Like, I don't know if a team can do that. I don't know if a team can go 13-0 and then win, which at least they would have a bye week. So in the playoff, they have a bye in the playoff, so you'd only have 3. So what's that? 16-0 as we look back at the bracket here, beating Texas A&M, Oregon, and Notre Dame after going 13-0. So yeah, 16-0. That would be quite a feat. But I think Ohio State, if any team can do it, it's probably the Buckeyes this year. So give me your predictions so far at this point down in the comments below.